One of the questions that we consistently hear from you, that this one really breaks my heart because I know there's so much baggage and tension attached to this, but what does it mean as a woman in the different seasons of life that we find ourselves in the different roles we find ourselves in, to follow God? And I hate how loaded that question is, because I think for years and years, and probably generations and generations, we have felt an unusual amount of tension when it comes to our callings. Whether that's because we're single, or whether that's because we're married, or whether that's because we're a mother, or whether that's because now we're an empty nester, or whether that's because we've divorced, or whether that's because we are not wanting to complicate our lives in our church and not knowing our role in our church. I could go on and on and on about this, but I know that for all of us, it feels like there are a certain, wherever we live, depending on where we live and what role or season we find ourselves in, there can be certain rules or expectations on that season of life or wherever we find ourselves. And so I actually address this later in the book, and I wanted to address it today because I think it's so important that we know what God says. And what God says is, first of all, there are a few passages about being a woman in this book, and they're important. But this whole book is written for you. This isn't like these sections written to women are for you. This whole book is for you. And this whole book is about being redeemed. It is about a God that rescued us from our inadequacy and our weakness and our mistakes and our sin, and set us apart for incredible purposes that he prepared in advance for us to do. So we have disqualified ourselves for different reasons as women, but that is not what God says. God actually went to women again and again when he was on earth. Jesus was consistently choosing to use women to spread the gospel. Let me just tell you, like, the world has a pattern, and it is to put us in categories, and it's to define everything about us and where we are, and to divide us and segment us out and put us in silos. And Romans 12 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, though, and be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, what is acceptable, and what is perfect." This is such a favorite verse of mine, and the reason why is it gives us so much hope, that we are not stuck in the patterns of this world, that we're not in bondage to those, that those don't define us, but that we are actually transformed. And the way we're transformed, I love that it spells it out for us, is by the renewal of our minds. And the way that our minds change is by knowing God. Our minds shift and our minds change when we know God, when we know what he wants for us. And what he wants for you is big and beautiful, and it is writing eternal stories that are never going to end. He wants you investing in the lives of people around you. He wants you living in freedom from your sin and the bondage that brings. He wants you to be captivated with him and fixed on him. His plan for you is so lovely and gritty and amazing, but we miss it because we dismiss ourselves. And a lot of times we dismiss ourselves because we're women. And I get this. This is my story. I mean, when I think back to the complicated nature of the calling on my life and being married and having a really strong husband that has strong opinions and strong giftings and callings too, and the tension, and I worried, what is this going to do to our marriage? How is this going to divide us? How is he going to support what I've been called to do? And I didn't know in the beginning. And honestly, there's a season of our marriage and our life where that did not go well. And that's one reason I'm such a fan of counseling, because that has played such a powerful role in our lives, where a third party has come in and helped us sort through these big, weighty issues that all of us face. So we've been through the work and the ringer on how difficult this can be. I'm not naive. But I also know that it's worth the work. I know that because of the work, and because we both deeply want to please God, we have seen incredible stories built from doing the work. So my encouragement to you is just, whatever the tension is, whatever is holding you back, name it. And then also find the people that you can process with. Find that third party. Maybe it's a paid counselor, or maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone at your church, but find that third party that can help you process what it looks like to live out your calling in the midst of the relationships and responsibilities that you have. And the same could be true if you're single. That is another thing. I've been so grateful for friends like Annie Downs that literally she has recognized what Paul knew, which was it is a gift to be single. Let's run our guts out with that, with the freedom that that brings. And I've watched so many of my friends do that so beautifully. And so hopefully that's you, that you recognize that that season is a gift. And if that season lasts for a long time, like a lot of my friends who are still single at my age and older, they are running their guts out in such a faithful way and spending their life well. And so whatever it is, I just pray that you will see that your significance is not in the season of life you're in, and it's not in your gender. It's in the fact that you are called by God and set apart for purposes that matter. And he sees you and he loves you, and he doesn't dismiss our gender. He doesn't dismiss our roles and all those things. He works through them. So in the comments, I want you just to share, what are the tensions for you in womanhood and calling, and how are you processing those?